This is the process shot. I'm Michael. I'm stuck in a haunted movie theater, and I've seen But I'm a Cheerleader, a romantic comedy from 1999 directed by Jamie Babbit. It follows Megan, your average high school cheerleader, whose friends and family believe that her behavior and interests are a sign of something terrible, homosexuality. One intervention later, and she's sent to True Directions, a conversion therapy camp for others like her, where she's put through a rigorous 5-step program to rediscover her heterosexuality and return to normalcy. Despite the strictness of the camp's director, that's something easier said than done, due in part to the true nature of the campers avoiding repression. In Megan's case, there's also Graham, another lesbian at the camp whose rebellious shell gives way to a much gentler and heartfelt understanding of her sexuality and a final decision about whose path she should follow. If that all sounds a bit cheesy, it's because it kind of is. Despite some of the more serious subject matter, the film approaches almost everything here with tongue-in-cheek. There's a clearly satirical angle throughout almost every scene that directly exaggerates and criticizes the traditional values, images, and overall direction of society through the camp and its methods. The comedic bits of the story usually come through this conflict between the camp's goals and the campers themselves, and the irony of what the director sees as progress against how effectively the campers can hide or repress their sexuality. Meanwhile, Megan's own story is the definite narrative crux, with her perspective and actions being what push everything along, and her own character developing through her relationship and romance with Graham. It ends up being a more humanistic contrast to the satirical elements, all but ignoring any comedic potential in the scenario, and cutting more into the emotional core of not only her story, but on a larger level, any person who has ever tried to find love and acceptance within a society that rejects them. It might feel a bit too simplified or straightforward of a plot for some people, but I think it's helpful in making the story feel a bit more familiar or comforting, rather than becoming something more complicated than necessary. Plus, it helps to streamline events as they occur, allowing the underlying themes to make themselves even clearer through the satire. Speaking of which, the film's visual makeup is definitely a great factor in putting forth the satirical elements. The camp itself is an obvious pastiche of 50s domestic life and imagery, with kitschy uniforms and other household objects, and hypersaturated colors, with a special emphasis on pink and blue for obvious reasons. Cinematography also likes to lay this on, but it does have an eye for some creative framing and lighting during smaller, more intimate moments between characters. Music choices also seem to add to the emotional layers of the film, with a general pop-punk tone throughout, which almost cuts through the pretenses and facades of the camp and reminds the audience of just when this movie is meant to take place, or perhaps something more along the lines of who this movie is meant for. That might be stretching it a bit, but what I'm trying to get at is that for every bit of the movie that's campy and exaggerated, there's usually some theme or idea underneath that speaks more directly to those who need to hear him. But I'm a Cheerleader. Jamie Babbit, 1999. 4 stars. I definitely recommend giving it a watch. That's it for this review. If you liked it, leave a like. If you have something to add, leave a comment. Subscribe to the channel for more reviews. This really is a movie that speaks for itself better than I ever could. And I'm not saying that just because I'm bad at explaining things. Well, it's partially because of that, but still.